John, lovely to see you, and thanks for sparing the time to talk to me ahead of your performance with the Waverley Singers on the 25th of March, where you'll be singing the baritone solo in the Brahms Requiem and also performing with Richard Pierce, our conductor, Brahms Four Serious Songs. Maybe we could start by just you're telling me a little bit about yourself. You're a lad from the Lake District, I understand. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, I was born and brought up in the Lake District. My father was a vicar there. So I was born in Whitehaven, right at the top end of Cumbria, and then brought up in a village called Levens, which is not far from Kendal in the south end of the Lake District. And I went to school near Blackpool and then university in Durham. So I'm really not pretty northern, although I don't sound like it.
And did you sing at Durham?
Yes, off and on, mostly musicals in Gilbert and Sullivan. I wasn't in the cathedral choir, but I did have lessons and yes, sang in every musical I could.
But you weren't reading music at that time?
No, I wasn't. And I read theology at Durham.
Oh, that must have been great. Wonderful place to do it, I guess.
It was, absolutely. What was even better was they had a really good student theatre. And I went from being at a school where you could do a play and a musical every year to university where you could do a play every week pretty much. So it was like being a child in a sweet shop. It was fabulous.
But you weren't at that stage thinking of pursuing a career as a professional musician, I imagine. What did you do when you graduated?
So not really, Mike. No, I always wanted to be a performer of some kind. So I had it in mind to do that, and I always quite fancied being a teacher as well. So it was somewhere between those two. And when I graduated, I then signed up to do a PGCE teaching course, and wasn't sure. Wasn't very organised. Didn't get anything sorted out. So I applied for a teaching job and got it. I got a teaching job in London at a school called Allane's in Dulwich. And so I thought, well, I'll go and do that for a couple of years. So I went and did that and had a great time. And by the time I was finishing my 4 years there, I was thinking that I'd quite like to go and try and be an opera singer. So I auditioned for the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and I didn't get in the first time. And then the next year I did get in. So I went and trained there. I did the post-diploma course, and then did the opera course, and then went to National Opera Studio after that. So yes, it took me a little while to decide that opera was the route I wanted to go down, but haven't regretted it for a moment.
But that's quite a big deal, isn't it? I mean, if you haven't had a conventional musical education, you've done a degree in music, done postgraduate, then to sort of get yourself into the Guildhall and then the National Opera Studio, it's quite a feat, isn't it?
I think I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. They didn't have anybody better, so that's how I got in.
I think you're being very modest.
Wait and see. It's it's all to do with your vocal ability and your performance and how well you can perform. To an extent, the musical background is useful. If you've done a degree, it's useful, or A level. And I didn't even do GCSE music, so I'm not terribly musically literate, but it didn't really matter because it was more about what you could convey of the characters you were playing and how well you could use your voice, how well you could get your voice to work. That was the more significant thing.
Yes, that's interesting. So it's as much about the performance side as it is about the technical understanding of the musical side. You've got to be a performer.
Yes, I think that's really important. And the more singing I do, and the more singing teaching I do, the more I think it's really about what you can convey rather than about how your voice works. And if you think of some of the greatest singers of all time, think of Maria Callas. It was a voice that not everybody loves, but what she could do with it was phenomenal. And she said herself, the reason she was so good is because she knew the music really well. She got to know the music inside out, so she could get every last nuance out of it and convey absolutely every emotion.
Yes, indeed. So after you completed your studies, what happened next?
So after the National Opera Studio, I started work as a jobbing singer, and I did a bit of work for Scottish Opera and Opera Holland Park, fabulous company in London. I've worked quite a lot for them over the last 15 years. James Clutton's the general manager there, and it's a fantastic company, really nurtures young singers and is doing some amazing work now. And so I've worked a lot for them. I've worked a bit for ENO, and latterly I've got two daughters, and I didn't want to travel around quite so much, so I went back a little bit into teaching. And the school I work at, it's called Churches College in Petersfield, not too far from where I live. They are very good about allowing me to go off and sing a little bit in the summer, so I can still go and do some opera and fit in concerts here and there for the rest of the year.
Gosh, it's great that you can combine the two, because being, as you say, a jobbing singer must be a slightly precarious occupation.
Very, very precarious.
Did you have an agent, someone who was finding jobs for you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I had a lovely agent called Helen Sykes, who's still operating, although because I'm not quite full time in the opera world anymore, although I may go back to that. We don't work together anymore. But she was great, and yes, and very good at finding work at some of the bigger opera companies.
So, John, we've talked a lot about opera, which is clearly your passion. Just coming back to the Brahms Requiem, I imagine you must have performed it many times before.
I have. I can't actually remember how many times I've done it. Quite a few. The first time I remember was in Highgate in North London with a conductor called Ronald Corp, and I think it was with organ accompaniment rather than orchestra. And then I've done it several times since in both German and English. And I couldn't tell you where the last. Oh, well, I can tell you where the last time was. It was with Basingstoke Choral Society, and combined with Croydon Choral Society, that's right, in Guildford Cathedral with full orchestra. And it's a fabulous, fabulous work. So I've not done it for a couple of years. I'm really looking forward to revisiting it.
Gosh, that must have been great. It is such a wonderful work, isn't it? It's amazing. It's quite operatic in its way, but it's also very, very spiritual and very intimate and very moving.
Absolutely, and having the swell of the orchestra and the ranks of the choir behind you is absolutely wonderful. And the movements, I forget what it is in German, but how lovely are thy dwellings is the English translation. Absolutely beautiful. I'm sort of coming out of nowhere and very calm in the midst of all the drama around it.
But you also have one of the best pieces ever written for baritones soloists, the Herr, lehre doch mich, which we'd all love to be able to sing. I think that's some of the high notes are a little bit beyond me, but it must be terrific to be able to get there.
Yes, absolutely is. Fairly somber in its character, but yes, absolutely wonderful. Very dramatic and very operatic, as you say.
And you're also going to perform with Richard Pierce, our conductor, on piano, Brahms's Four Serious Songs.
That's right. Yes, hugely looking forward to that. I've known them for a while, but never actually had the opportunity to perform them. So I'm hugely grateful for that, and immensely looking forward to working alongside Richard, who I've known for many years, and he's absolutely fantastic and a brilliant pianist. So yes, I'm hugely looking forward to that, and so many links between the Requiem and the Serious Songs. Although the Serious Songs were written right at the end of Brahms's life. Possibly because Clara Schumann, who he was very close to, had just had a stroke, and it seems he might have written them as a result of what he was feeling about her coming to the end of her life, and indeed him coming towards the end of his life. And the first three are again pretty somber, rather like the Herr, lehre doch mich. And the fourth is it's the setting of 1 Corinthians 13, the passage in the Bible that's so often read at weddings about love being the most important thing, and the greatest of these is love. So it's very optimistic.
Wow, that's a great extra treat for us. We'll enjoy listening to you singing those.
An extra treat for me as well.
And John, after this, what does the future hold? You did mention before that you could go back to being more full-time in opera. Have you got any plans in that direction?
So this summer I'm working with a wonderful little touring company called Opera Brava. They've been going for goodness over 30 years, I think, and they tour all over the country outside. They have a touring stage and go to usually National Trust properties or something like that. And what are we doing this summer? We're doing Tosca, in which I'm playing the sacristan, Barbara Seville, in which I'm playing the comedy bad guy, Dr. Bartolo, and La Traviata, in which I'm playing the bad guy, proper bad guy, Baron Dufault. So that's going to be the summer, which is wonderful. And
John, if I were to tell our audience, now Now, there's one thing that you really wouldn't have known about John Lofthouse. What would it be?
Not many people know this, but I am in a Queen tribute band, and I spend some of my time dressed up as Freddie Mercury and trying to strut around the stage in the way that he did. We're called Queen Tribute, and if you want to catch us, we are at Godalming Borough Hall and Alton Assembly Rooms in April. I forget the dates, but there'll be plenty of advertising around. It's a huge amount of fun, and we do it to try and raise money for charity.
Very good. That's terrific. Well, John, thank you very much again for taking the time to talk to me. It's been a real pleasure, and we're very much looking forward to performing with you on the 25th of March in Aldershot. Look forward to seeing you then.
Not at all, Mike. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for the interview.